I just bought every generation of Corvette I have ever sold, but which one is best for you? In the past 21 and a half years, I've had the liberty of selling a whole lot of Corvettes. I came into the era of the C5. Obviously, I've seen the whole way through the C6, C7, and currently the first 2.5 years of the C8. As one of the top Corvette salesmen in the country, I'm asked all the time on which options to get, and even down to which car is the best car for your driving needs. So luckily, I have everything from C5 to C8, which is the most modern things. And personally, if you're looking for a C4 below, that's a very, very special buyer who wants to buy one of those cars. I would never buy a C4. But anyways, I want to show you all of these cars that I have here and show you some of the big changes they've made over the generations. The very first one we're going to hit is this 2002 Millennium Yellow C5 convertible. And for you younger people, Millennium meant from 1999 to 2000 or 2000 to 2001, whichever way you sway on that controversy. So this is a really awesome car. Absolutely love this. So this car actually has 2 items on it that are no longer available after the C5 era. The C5 era started in 1999 and went to 2004. Do you know what those 2 items might be?
Teach me something new, man. I need to learn.
The very first one is these pop-up headlights. So this is the last year of the pop-up headlights for a Corvette, and it was a big controversy that going to the C6 that people thought that this was a bad idea. And the next thing was this was the last year that was absolutely 100% equivalent that you had a manual top. So 2005, you had manual top and power top. You had a little bit of cars out there with a manual top in the C6, but nobody ever bought them. But this was the last generation of the manual top. So the convertible top works on this really, really cool. And as a new car salesman, you may have some difficulty trying to figure out how this top works. One of the other cool things about this generation is the last year for manual door locks. So typically we have door locks that just, pull the handle and open up. Well, C6 was the first era of the electronic button to open the door, and obviously we have those now. So speaking of electronic buttons, there's an electronic button right under here, and that's where you put your hand at to do this. If you've done this before, it's pretty simple. First time, you can see that you have to bring this up like so, that down, and then there's a lock there and there. The next generation is the C6, and I actually have 2 C6s here. This one's an 06. The one I'm gonna focus on a little bit more is an 07. But yeah, so this was the new body style in 2005, and the C6 went to 2013. There was quite a few changes in the C6 that the enthusiasts really just got on and just hit it. I already mentioned it during the C5, and that was no pop-up headlights. But a lot of good things came out of the C6 as well. The C6 had the return of the ZR1 in that era. Obviously, we didn't have that in the C5, but this is probably one of my favorite cars, and this is the Z06. Now, the reason I like this car so much, not only because it's just a super, super awesome car, but also you only got manual transmission in this car. But the big thing that I really love about the C6 Z06 is this bad boy LS7 right here. Yes, this is the last era of the 7.0 liter big block. Not only did the Z06 only come in coupe, you could not remove the top on the Z06 or ZR1, but it didn't come in a convertible either. So during this generation of the Corvette, there's just too much horsepower, too much torque out of this, that they twisted frames and just did a bunch of other goofy things to the car that they could just never get the structure completely correct with a convertible. So on the C6, this is actually structural integrity right here to the car. So if you roll over, this is going to protect you as much as the A-pillars do up here. Besides the 2010 ZR1, probably the most exciting car came out in 2013, the last year of the C6 era, and that was the 427 convertible. Yes, they made this bad boy into a convertible with over 500 horsepower. Now, it only came in a manual transmission, which is really rare for a convertible. If you got one, it's super rare. They're tough to sell because they're just not highly sought after. But there was only 2,500 427 sold. So that makes them even more rare. It's definitely a huge collector's edition. This C6 2007 Z06 is pretty amazing. I just kind of showed you that interior with that two-tone seats. If you didn't see that, I absolutely love the two-tone. He put like a ZR1 type spoiler on the back here, a C7 type spoiler, and we got some chrome wheels. And this thing has only got 25,000 miles. It's really sick and sweet Z06. And of course, after that awesome 427, the C7 was announced, and this is when I really got excited about the Corvette. I bought my very first Corvette in 2015, which is a Long Beach Red C7, and I have a few of these C7s here. But man, what huge changes in the C7 came with the technology and the internet that we had going on in 2013. Now, as you may or may not know, the C7 was never supposed to happen. It was supposed to go right into the mid-engine Corvette, but coming out of the economy in 2009, 2010, they decided to make this car. And also, you may know that C8 was started production, or started like Intel and development is probably the better word to say it. As soon as the 2013 C7 was announced, they started the development of the C8. So this is a narrow body car. This is a 2019. And then over here, I have a couple other ones. Probably my favorite color car, the Laguna Blue. This is a 2016. This one's a convertible. Actually, Mrs. Bachman owned this. She just got a brand new amazing C8. And then this 2019 right here is probably my favorite Grand Sport of all time. So we had the narrow body that I just showed you. We had the Grand Sport, the Z06, and the ZR1 models, ranging anywhere from 455, 460, the most common horsepower, all the way up to 750 with the ZR1. Now, Mrs. Chevy Dude and I do want a ZR1, and we are getting ready to launch a third channel, so be ready for that because we have some really fun stuff coming. And I just shot the video yesterday for maybe a ZR1. Well, you'll have to see. Now, the C7 was not without its controversy. The biggest change from the C6 to the C7 was the circle taillights to these taillights. Now, the enthusiasts absolutely hated these taillights. And even with the C8, they still make comments on it, even though they're wrong, because if you look at the back of a C8, it more looks like a Malibu, not a Camaro. So, but yes, they still talk about the taillights and headlights to this day. Now, what I love about this Grand Sport here is the color. The very first thing that I love about the color is that it's ceramic matrix gray. I'm a huge carbon fiber fan. I have carbon fiber all over my C7. I have carbon fiber all over my C8. This is the exposed carbon fiber top. I have this on my C8. On the interior, we have carbon fiber in here. It's gonna be tough to see, but that's carbon fiber in there. And I think one of the mistakes they made with the ZR1 is they actually did not make that a matte carbon fiber. They made it a gloss carbon fiber. I like the matte carbon fiber even better. And we have another car that we're gonna put on the new channel when we launch it here at the end of August, early September. And we have a ton of carbon fiber in that new car as well. And then on the C7 Grand Sport, if you got red seatbelts, you got the red shifter pedals as well. 8-speed automatic transmission. You have a stinger stripe up here. You have a stage 2 aero package, ground effects splitter, and then on the Grand Sport and Z06 wide body cars, you got this stage 2 winglet right here. And then that leads us into the most anticipated car ever in the history of Chevrolet, and maybe even in the history of automotive, and that would be the mid-engine Corvette. To this day, we're over 2 years since the car has been announced, a year and a half in production, and you still can't walk into a dealership and get one, and these cars are still going for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 over MSRP. And if you're lucky enough to find one, used are even more expensive than new. Now, we all know that this was a dream and ambition for Zora Duntov, but this is absolutely an amazing car. I have over 30,000 miles on my current C8 that I have, the 12th one ever built for Corvette. And this right here, this is one of the beautiful colors. We have more colors than we've ever had on cars. This one's called Shadow Gray Metallic, which they do not make anymore. And then also the really awesome thing about this is they have a lot of interior choices. So when we come back to this black one here, we have what's called Sky Cool Gray interior. You can kind of see that. This is a 1LT car. And if I remember right, when you go all the way up to the 3LT, you have about 30 different interior choices that you can do on the mid-engine Corvette. And I'm telling you, that is an amazing thing to have when you want to customize your own car. Now, besides the engine being midpoint into the car, we've obviously lost a few things in the 8th generation era of the car. Obviously, we have no more manual transmission. We have a dual clutch automatic 8-speed transmission that's absolutely phenomenal. We have more choices of caliper colors. I love the yellow calipers. I have these on my car. They're absolutely beautiful. And obviously, we don't have any more hood that comes up this way because the hood comes up traditional because that's a front trunk. And then we also have no more chrome wheels. Everything is either silver or black. And if you want one of these, unless you buy it used, you're probably still looking at 18 months to get a car. It's absolutely insane. And we're probably going to see that probably for the next 2 to 3 years, especially with the Z06 getting announced later this fall of 2021.
Hey man, it's 20 after, it's time to choose.
Now, each one of these generations of car that I showed you, it's got their own unique personalities, traits, and things that you absolutely love about them. I made a comment earlier that I am not a fan of how C4s and earlier ride. Now, I'm not saying that they're bad cars, but they're just for a different generation, and those cars are not cars that you can take out on the weekends, drive to work, and enjoy. Those are cars that are garage trophies or just drive around the block, take to car shows, etc. Now, when the C5 came out, these are definitely huge car show cars, but man, the ride and quality of these cars are absolutely amazing. You've got a lot of room in them, and of course you have some amazing technology for the era. When we move over to C6, this is when a lot of people started getting interested in the car, especially when you have a car here in 2007 with 505 horsepower. In 2021, 505 horsepower isn't a whole lot because our 495 horsepower car could just absolutely eat this car to death. But the fact that you have 500 horsepower, you change the exhaust to a Corsa exhaust and have amazing fun shifting through those gears. This car rides good, it's got a lot of room, and it's definitely something that you could drive daily or on the weekends and take to car shows. I mentioned it earlier that the C7 was the first generation that really got me interested in the car. I love the C6, but the looks of the C7, the LEDs, and most importantly, the technology. We have Apple CarPlay, we have better navigation with no disc. It's all integrated into the radio now. We have USB ports. That was something lacking in the C6 until like the 12 and 13 model years. I don't know how I do it now, but having a backup camera is an absolute must, and the C6 never had one where the C7 had it, and it makes backing the car up so much easier. So if you like technology, the C7 is definitely the route to go. However, there are some drawbacks as a Corvette owner, as a car salesman for Corvette. The driver's side and the passenger side seating capacity is very narrow. It's tough, and it does have a little bit rougher ride than we're used to on the C7. There's nothing negative about that ride. You're in a sports car, but just be ready for it. Z51 gives you the little bit rougher ride, where the standard suspension gives you the softer ride. But most cars out there are Z51. As well as there is a big misnomer that you need magnetic ride control. Magnetic ride control on a C7 is geared and designed for track use. And then that brings us to the fun boy. This is the C8. The C8, I can't tell what they've done wrong on the C8.
She's perfect.
The C8 rides amazing. I have more miles on my C8 that is 1.5 years old than I do my C7 that is 7 years old. I have 27,000 miles on the C7, over 30,000 on the C8. I have a 3LT car, so it's fully loaded, but the biggest things that I did right on my C8 car was I got magnetic ride control. Unlike the C7, magnetic ride control is a must. On 2020, magnetic ride control with Z51 is the smoothest. On 2021, without Z51 and magnetic ride control gives you the smoothest ride. But getting Z51 and magnetic ride control, you absolutely love this car. With the C8, they've also brought back a whole lot more cabin room. It feels more like the C6 and the C5 do rather than the C7. The lack of trunk is a little bit deceiving because you have the front trunk up here, which does allow you to put in a carry-on suitcase, and the back trunk does give you 2 sets of golf clubs, but it's pretty tight when you start putting in other items. It's an extremely tough decision on which car to pick, but over the last 20 years, you can't go wrong if you go C5, C6, C7, or C8. Hey, if you like this content, make sure you hit the subscribe button, turn your bell notifications on, and leave a comment down below that I know you are here.